Hello,
Here we are again.
it's been a while since I've been on the couch actually.
Oh, no, you've been brought out of retirement, mate. Hey, do you remember how to do this?
I have no idea. We'll see how we go.
Flying by the seat of our pants as always, but having a load of fun while we're at it. And again, thanks you very much for playing along at home. Gary and Andrew with you today on the couch for WP Butler's Lunchtime Live Q&A. We're going to sit back for the next 15, 20 minutes and just answer your questions to make your life a little bit easier around managing your WordPress websites.
That's what we're here for.
Right. If you need anything, remember wpbutler.com.au. There's a form, there's live chat, and there's a phone number on your screen to ring to have a chat to one of the boys, and they'll be more than happy to see how they can sort you out.
Absolutely.
All right, here we go. Number one, Lisa from the Sunshine Coast, the beautiful Sunshine Coast. I've installed Yoast, and can't see where to change titles and descriptions for each category. But where do I add the meta information for website itself? Sorry, I'm going to read that again. I've installed Yoast and can see where to change titles and descriptions for each category, but where do I add the meta information for website itself? Could we discuss permalinks and what they are?
Excellent. Okay. Hi,
I hope you
Lisa.
got that.
Yeah, I think I followed all
I
of that.
completely munted that, but thank you, Lisa, for your comment. We'll see how we go.
Okay. Number one, Yoast SEO is probably the best SEO plugin out there. It's been around a very long time. It's come a long way in the time that it's been around, and it does an excellent job of preparing your website to be indexed by the search engine. Some of the things that it does, one thing that the search engines don't like to see is duplicate content. So when you write a blog post, you write your blog post, it would also get added to potentially a category or two. You might also have tags, so each of the keywords you'd set up as a tag. Now, there'll be a link to that blog post in every category, and also tags have their own pages, and depending on how your website is set up, your blog post may actually display the entire post inside of that tag category or inside of the category page. And that equates to essentially duplicate content. Even if you're only showing an excerpt, that excerpt would then appear on potentially half a dozen or a dozen different pages, depending on how many categories and tags that you've selected. So Yoast allows you to very easily just tell the search engines, look, category pages, tag pages, don't index them, only index my individual posts. So that's just one of the many awesome things that it does. What I love about it is when we're teaching people to write good search engine copy, it has a little traffic light system. So as you write your post, at the bottom, it's got some suggestions, and depending, if you've done it well, you get a green light. If it's sort of a work in progress, you get a yellow light, and if you've completely forgotten about it, you get a red light. And obviously, the more green lights that you get, the better your website looks for the search engine. So yeah, that's great plugin. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. Now, to answer Lisa's question, she wants to know, so she's found how to optimize categories. Now, pages, posts, categories, essentially every page that is visible on your website, you can create a meta title and a meta description, which gets passed to the search engines that says, look, if you think this page should be displayed in the search results, here's a good title to use, here's a good description to use. And Google actually would just use that up until about a year ago, when they've decided, look, they may use it, or they may determine, look, we'll choose our own copy from your page. Yeah. And initially I thought, that's terrible. But the example would be, if you're, for example, WP Butler, we do a lot of things. We help you with WooCommerce, we help you with WordPress, we help you with LearnDash. Jeff talks a lot about LearnDash. So we cover a lot of bases. Now, if someone does a search and they're looking specifically for WooCommerce help, but our title and description don't mention WooCommerce, then they may pass over our listing. So what Google does is, well, actually these guys do offer WooCommerce, so rather than using their description that doesn't mention WooCommerce, we're going to take a couple of snippets from text on the page and use that. So that's the reason why. Now I keep getting diverted from Lisa's question.
Back to the point.
But to answer her question, she wants to know how you write a title and description for the website itself, not the individual pages and posts. And actually, it's very, very simple. Your homepage is a page. So all you would need to do is edit your homepage and change the title and description in the Yoast tool for the homepage. Now, Yoast used to have a completely separate setting for the homepage, but even if your website is set up as a blog, you still have a blog page that you can edit. So if you're set up as with a static page for the homepage, which I believe Lisa's website is, then you simply edit that page and create the title and description. If your WordPress website is installed as a blog where there isn't necessarily a page to edit, that's when I think that tool appears inside of the Yoast settings. But typically most people use WordPress for business websites, that sort of thing. They no longer have a blog on the homepage. Is typically a static page. Whether you're advertising your wares, here are our services, that sort of thing, you would then have the opportunity to optimize the page itself. So on the rare occasion that you have a blog, on the rare occasion you're using WordPress for what it was built for, that plays a little bit differently. But for most of us who use WordPress for business websites, you just simply edit the homepage, make the changes in the Yoast settings there, and that will set your title and your description.
I think that's, Andrew touched on it before, I think that's one of the reasons why Yoast is probably the leader in this space, is that simple little green light, yellow light, red light.
Well, that's scenario. The thing that
simple.
The old SEO seems like smoke and mirrors, but it really isn't rocket science. It just takes a little bit of commitment. So that's this plugin is essentially being built to bring it in-house to allow you the opportunity to make those changes and optimizations yourself rather than spending thousands and thousands of dollars to get someone on board. So it's a good idea to make that start yourself. That points you in the right direction. If you're in a very competitive niche, you may need to get the experts involved, but Yoast SEO plugin is a great place to start.
Very good. Hope that was helpful, Lisa, and I hope we finally got there.
We got there.
Good on you. Thanks, mate. All right. Pete from Sydney asks, there is a page on my website I need to modify, but I can't find it in pages or posts. How do I track it down? Where's this missing post?
That's a very good question. Okay, so when you log into your dashboard and then return to the home page of your website, you should see a little strip of gray across the top, which is the admin bar. So when you're logged into the dashboard, by default, you'll have an admin bar across the top, and that gives you, it allows you to jump back and forth into the dashboard and back to the public side of your website. So that's usually, especially when as a customer that has hundreds of pages, you go to pages and then there's 6 versions of the home page and a whole bunch of contact pages and all this. You could scroll through them all looking for that page, but the easiest way to find it is to go to the public page that you want to edit. As long as you're logged in, you've got the dashboard admin bar across the top. And if it is a page or a post, you'll have the option to edit page, edit post up there. So you click the button or click the link in the header, that will take you directly into the page to edit, and then you can make that change. Now, it sounds like Pete's page isn't a page or a post if he's looked in those 2 places, which then makes it a little difficult. We potentially have to have a look, but what WordPress does, one of the reasons why it's so powerful is it has what's called custom post types. So, a page and a post are still both types of posts in the database. They all get stored in the same table called posts. So a page is a type of post. Even an image is a post. Pretty much everything that you write into the database gets stored as some kind of post, but you've got different post types, so page, image, attachment, that sort of thing. So what can often happen is, depending on who built your website, they may have created a custom post type for you. So for example, if you had a website that reviewed movies, rather than having it as a page or a post, you might have a movie post type where when you click on that and add a new one, you'd have the year that it came out, who the actors were, potentially would be the tags, the category would be the genre, that sort of thing. So have a look to see whether there are some custom post types created inside the dashboard. So as well as post and page, there may be sometimes it will be a slider. It might, as I said, a movie. Testimonials is one that I've seen a fair bit. Your WooCommerce store, your products are a custom post type, that sort of thing. So yeah, without actually seeing it, that would be the place to look. If it's not a page or a post, check out whether it's a custom post type. Alternatively, WordPress does have its custom taxonomy, so your categories and your tags still end up being pages on your website, but not really editable pages. You wouldn't find them as a post or a page. You can then go into posts, categories, and if you were using the Yoast SEO plugin that we talked about in the previous question, you can still create a title and description for the category. So to give you an example, if we were talking about the movie custom post type and the genre was the category, then you might have your website.com/horror, and that would be the horror category for all your movies, and then under /horror would be all the movies inside of that category. But if you just went to /horror, that would be essentially like an archive page for all the horror movies, and you could potentially write a title and description. Sometimes you can even add content into that archive page depending on how it was set up. So short answer is you're going to have to go looking for it. If you do get stuck, get in touch with us. We'll be able to track it down for you, but that is how we would go looking.
Yeah, I think we're seeing more and more custom post types pop into different themes, because there's a lot of the themes are being purpose built. For example, if you're talking about a car site, the listings for each individual cars aren't just straight out posts or pages. They're actually contained in a custom post type called listings. Same thing with real estate sites. So we're starting to see that more and more custom built themes using custom post types. It's one of the really powerful features of WordPress. It's why I think I've mentioned this before. I've been using WordPress for a very long time, and in that time there's probably been half a dozen websites that at the time I thought, I'm not sure if WordPress could handle it, but now knowing what I know now, WordPress would have totally handled it. We would have just leveraged some of those tools like your custom post types, custom taxonomies, that sort of thing, in order to set it up. Beautiful. Hope that was of some help there, Pete. If you need a little bit more assistance, reach out to the guys here at WP Butler at wpbutler.com.au. All right, Kim from, don't know where Kim's from, but we are an industry body and want to create a members area where our members can access resources. What's the best way of doing this? Cool. Okay. Great idea. And again, this is one of the tools that I wasn't sure WordPress could handle back in the day. Probably 10 years ago, I quoted on doing a membership site for something like 30,000 volunteers in Queensland, and I thought, I'm not sure if WordPress can handle that. And now I know better and can totally do that. So to answer your question, there are membership plugins. So just in general, if you were, for example, you were creating a product where you sold an education, here's a lesson on how to do X, Y, Z. You can create or install a membership plugin and sell access to these resources. So what you can actually do is say, look, to access my website, it costs $50 per year. It costs $5 per month. It's a one-off fee of $10. However you want to set that up. It can be recurring or it can be once off. And then that allows you, if you have that valid membership attached to your user, then you have access to those resources. WordPress does user management really, really well. However, it can open itself up to spam. When you set up WordPress for the first time, in the settings, there's a section to say, allow people to register
And often, if you leave that open, spammers essentially sign up to your website in order to then post comment spam. So it is a good idea to leave that switched off. Now, if you install a plugin to run a membership site, even if that's switched off, it will allow people to register. So you don't have to worry about that. And then only those paying members will get access. Now, to answer this particular question, if you're an industry body, you probably don't want the entire world signing up. You want only those people within your industry or paid members inside of your industry body signing up on your website. So one thing you might consider is actually taking your membership fees via the website rather than however you do it at the moment. You might manually send out invoices from your accounting software. So you could actually track members' payments through the website. That way they pay their money online, and as long as they've paid their money, they have access to the website. Now, if that departs from your workflow a little too much, potentially what you could do is just add an extra step before they get to that sign-up process. So something that I've done in the past is, for example, you send out people an invoice and it has an invoice number on it. What you might be able to do is keep in the database a list of the valid invoices that have been paid, and then when someone goes to sign up, they need to enter that invoice. It looks it up in the database, checks that. Okay, yes, that's a valid invoice. Now you can proceed to the sign-up process. So that's a little more fiddly. Probably a simpler way of doing it is we use Gravity Forms as a contact form. It's a very popular contact form. I think we've talked about it before, but it also has a members add-on or a user management add-on to it. So what that allows you to do is actually ask some questions, and based on those answers, allows someone to then sign up. So it bypasses the way WordPress would handle it. You do it through the Gravity form. That way you don't need a membership plugin, and the only way to register is to say, enter your details, enter your business name. You can even say, look, let people sign up, but we have to manually approve them. So it's, hi, I'm Fred and I'm from wherever.com, and you get that list each day and you say, yep, Fred, he's in. This guy from Russia, no thanks. He's not a paying member, and even Gravity Forms has something called conditional logic. So you can say, who's the head, who's the president of our industry body, and should everyone know who that is? Based on the response to that form, you can either send them through to then sign up or send them away saying, look, you got that wrong, you can't sign up to our website. So a couple of different options. There are paid membership plugins, which are great and would ease the burden on doing invoicing internally or manually. If you don't want to move away from that, you could use something like Gravity Forms to have some sort of challenge response that they have to answer correctly before they can then proceed to signing up.
Very good.
Whew, that was a complicated one.
Yeah. Hope that was of some help, Kim. As Andrew highlighted, there is a number of different membership options out there, and ultimately it just depends on what you're trying to achieve, what you want to offer your members, and how you want to go about it. And if you want to reach out to the guys at wpbutler.com.au, we can have a chat to you about all that and craft the right solution for you using the right plugin that'll do the job.
Yeah, I think Jeff's talked about one called Restrict Content Pro, which he uses a fair bit. So that's, only valid members can get access to these resources. But another one he's used is WooCommerce has a membership plugin. So if you use WooCommerce, if you make any sales online using WooCommerce, you can then buy this add-on, which allows you to sell a membership using the same process.
Plenty of options there, Kim. Plenty of options. All right, well, that's about it. But there's one thing that I wanted to sort of have a quick chat about, and that is something that keeps popping up day in, day out, week after week, month after month, and that is customers coming to WP Butler with an issue, which is great. Thank you very much for getting into contact.
We're here for.
That's it. But the big question is, why do we ask them for their hosting details? Why can't we just go and sort of solve the problem with just their WordPress login details?
Yeah, it's a good question. I spoke to someone about that just today. When you buy a $99 ticket from our website, it asks obviously for your details. It asks for your login details for WordPress, but it also asks for your hosting details. And yeah, this person I spoke with today, they were like, yeah, well, it's just a simple WordPress problem. What do you need our hosting details for? The answer is twofold. The first answer is, if we break something, which doesn't happen often, but can happen. Yeah. If we break something, we then no longer have access to the dashboard, which means we have absolutely no control over your website, where it is, and how it's working. Therefore, the problem would be, we need to jump on the phone and get those hosting details from you anyway in order to fix it. So yeah, within the WordPress dashboard, you have access to plugins and themes, so you can add PHP code via the dashboard to those. But if you have a syntax error in the code that you've added, or if what the code you've added then bumps heads with an existing plugin or even the WordPress core itself, you may find yourself facing the white screen of death, we call it. You may find yourself kicked out of the dashboard, and then there is nothing that can be done. So the reason we ask for the hosting details are, rather than trying to then develop inside of the dashboard, we can connect via FTP or use the file manager within your cPanel, for example. We download the file that we're about to change, so we have a backup of it. If anything goes wrong, we can make our little changes there. If something happens, we just replace that file with the original. Everything's back to normal, nothing's permanently broken, and hopefully your visitors are none the wiser. So that's the primary reason with the hosting details. If there are any problems when we're doing this fix, we actually can resolve it immediately. Now, the other aspect of it is we only have limited access to files within the dashboard. So as I said, you can edit themes and you can edit plugins, but the lady, the job that I was doing when I was speaking to her, I said, well, look, I'll give it a go, but again, you know, it's to circumvent any future issue if there's any problem. But then when I went to appearance, the editor wasn't there. So they may have had a security plugin, or within the theme developer decided, look, I'm going to restrict access to editing my theme, so that, you know, potentially no one could break anything, but then that prevented me from doing the job that I was asked to do. So we then had to follow up and say, yeah, look, in order to do this job, we actually do need the hosting details. So yeah, the short answer to that is safety, essentially. Backup plan, we like to, before we make any changes to files, we want to make sure that we have 100% backup. Quite often, rather than backing up the file we're going to change, we'll back up your database and your entire website, so that, you know, if there were any issues at all, we can put everything back how it was, and, you know, either start again or say, look, here are the issues that we face. And if we don't have access to the hosting details, you can see how that potentially could create a larger problem than what was there initially.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And look, I think the big takeaway there is that what we're seeing is that there's so many sites that we're looking at on a day-to-day basis that just don't even have a backup. There's no backup plugin. There's nothing there. So if we don't have those website hosting details, then we can't take a backup. And the other part too is we don't want to be leaving backups once we've sort of done our tidy up and fixed what we need to do. We don't want to be leaving backups on your cPanel either. So we quite often will download those backups or get rid of them so they're not clogging up your hosting account as well. So the big thing there is that, you know, we're not about to do anything that's going to endanger your website. Correct. And the security check there to make sure that stuff doesn't fall through the cracks is make sure that we take a backup. So, you know, over and above being able to access files and reach things that we can't get to, it really is taking that backup. So if something does happen to go wrong, we can, you know, at least put it back to where it was and have another go at it. So there you have it. So when you reach out to WP Butler and you do happen to purchase a ticket or tickets, or you're on any, pretty much most of our services are going to require the login details to your hosting package. Please don't ignore that. It does it is required, and it does enable us to get on with getting the job done quicker for you, so we don't then have to turn around and reach out again and ask for those. So help us out, help us to help you, and make sure you send through those details on that form.
Beautiful. Now, you were just talking about, before we came on air, someone having a trouble with a domain name.
Yeah, look, this is unfortunately too a very, very common problem. Being locked out of your domain name. I think there's probably three things when you're a website owner that you need to be on top of, and in no particular order. You need to have access to obviously your website, and you need to have administrator level. Don't accept from your website developer or whoever manages your website anything less than top level administrator level. If you're given editor or author level or anything less, you just simply don't have access to enough of the site to be able to grant other users permissions. For example, creating a user for WP Butler to go in and have a look and fix something for you, for example. So admin user is number one. Secondly, you also want to have access to, as we just said before, your website hosting details. Again, don't let the developer keep those from you. You do need those, particularly if there is a problem. And if you do happen to want to pick your website up and shift it away, most times you are going to need those details. And thirdly, your domain name. I'm gobsmacked as to how many people don't have control over their own domain name, or the web developer has registered the domain name their name on their account.
This used to be common practice, and when I say used to be, like in the early 2000s, so almost 20 years ago, website developers would register the domain on behalf of the client to do them a favor, basically, because it would have been quite a technical process. These days, domains cost about $10, $15, $20 a year. Very simple to log in and register. So especially the real issue comes when you're talking about a .com or a .net or something like that, because whoever's name is on that domain are the legal owner. When it comes to a .com.au, it's a little bit different because they're tied to an ABN or an ACN. So even if your developer registered it for you, more often than not, they do the right thing and use your ABN, which means even though all the renewal notices go to this developer. So to give you a real world example, this happened just yesterday, I believe. We had a call on WP Butler, and the lady said, look, the guy whose name is on their domain is the ex-husband of one of the employees. So not good working relationship. However, when we looked it up, correct ABN, correct business name. So what you do there is you contact the registrar where the domain, this is for .com.au's where ABNs are attached. You contact the registrar where the domain was registered, and you ask for their instructions. In this case, they have a form that you fill out, and they just essentially want proof that you're the business owner. Mm-hmm. So, there'll be not so much a tax return, but registration of business, ABN, something like that. If you can send that through to them, they'll say, cool, okay, we can see that this guy at yahoo.com.au isn't the correct owner, and you at your domain.com.au are the correct owner. So we'll change the ownership or change the contact details into your name, which then allows you to get control of it and do what you want with it. But as I said, it was common practice a long time ago, but it still seems to be happening.
It is, unfortunately, and it becomes a big problem, and particularly in the situation we're dealing with right now with this particular client, is that the existing company that they're with is threatening shutting their site down. So it needs to be moved, but moving the website's one thing, but then repointing the domain name to the new hosting server is a completely another scenario. So big takeaway from this one, make sure if you haven't already, get your domain name login details, make sure that the domain is actually correctly registered to you. You don't want to discover this at the last minute when there's an emergency going on. So there you have it.
Look, to find out, it's called a whois search. So try and do a whois, just Google whois for a .com.au or for a .com, whatever your domain is. Do a search and make sure your name and email address is attached to that. If you're not sure how to do that, get in touch. We'll be able to point you in the right direction. Very easy to do. We can do it with you over the phone.
Beautiful. All right, that's it for another Friday lunchtime live Q&A with the boys from WP Butler on the couch with you. Stick around next week Friday again, and make sure to tune in to our daily lives around about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We give you a rundown of the daily update of what's been going on in the WordPress world and here at WP Butler HQ.
We have a bit of a treat next week as well. Gary is starting a video series on user engagement. So if you've got a website, initially the battle was we need people to visit our website. These days, getting people to visit, that's step one. You then need them to engage. And what engagement means is, watch your video, click through the website, contact you, pick up the phone, that sort of thing. So we've done a complete video series starting Monday. It'll go for about 2 weeks. And we're going to discuss all the ways that you can increase engagement on your website. And when I say we, I mean...
Keep an eye out. It's full of juicy tidbits, so I hope you get something out of it. But yeah, stay tuned for that one as well. All right. Thanks, Facebook fans, WordPress lovers. Take a backup. Stay WordPress.